Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market, and let's figure out what is happening and what we can, of course, rather expect moving forward. So all that being said and done, the market's closing in just a couple of minutes here. Tesla with a nice green day today, closing up about, we'll say 1.4% on the day, closing at about $187 and about 60 cents or so on the day. Compared to the market, kind of in line, maybe arguably a slight underperformance, but more or less in line, we'll just say, with QQQ up 1% and SPY up about 0.75%. So what does this mean moving forward? So like I said yesterday, we are potentially breaking out, right? It was not the most convincing close on the breakout at least, but it was definitely peaking its head above the yellow line. And so far we have seen some fall through today. Now we started off the morning a little bit rocky, and in my membership section, by the way, link is down below if you're interested, join my member section on YouTube. Just $3 a month. I post my intraday thoughts, updates, options flow, etc. on Tesla throughout the day as it's trading. But I was telling my members how, we are potentially doing a retest right here, right now, and I want to see a green close. And that's kind of what we're getting right now. The candle is, of course, red because we're closing lower than the open, but the actual day itself is green, which is good. But we had not only filled the gap on the gap up this morning, which is good, but we arguably did come over and retest the breakout, which again, my line isn't drawn to absolute perfection. It's just to give you a rough idea. But you can see nice breakout, come back, a retest, and so far a successful retest. I did buy that dip, but I did also just sell it recently before I started recording because, well, I'll explain why soon. I'm still holding my overall shares, like my long shares, if you will. Just my trading shares are the ones that I sold. But there are a few. There's a lot of good stuff building up, but there is still a little bit of sign for maybe some caution, and we'll talk about that right now. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the 4-hour chart first, and let's talk about what that potential caution could be. So there's a very real possibility that we're trading within this red channel that you can see right here. Right now, before I start talking about the potential bearish here situation, I do want to say that the RSI looking good. Finally, showing some momentum, showing some life behind it. We talked about how the MACD on the 4-hour chart, at least I hope I talked about it in the video, I was talking about it in my member section, is looking to flip bullish, and it did flip bullish and is looking pretty decent, right? And even after this drawdown here, it still kept that bullish kind of, perspective, if you will, which is great. And then we're obviously seeing, the fall through today, which is also great to see. So overall, the technicals are still looking good, but the main concern is the fact that we're still trading arguably within this channel, with the top of the channel being somewhere around about $190 per share tomorrow, let's say, to break. If we break above that, great. However, while we're under 190, I still think technically it's not completely out of the realm of possibilities. We come down to maybe around 183, 184, right? Kind of come back down to this area that we were testing, right? Maybe even close to 180s, and potentially even set up an inverted head and shoulders, with the left shoulder being right here. We have the head here, potentially setting up our right shoulder right over here in the low, like very low 180s, like 181, give or take, of course, right? That is a possibility. Or the worst case scenario, that's still technically a possibility. I don't think it'll happen, but completely ignoring it and just not, even taking into account or consideration, in my opinion, is foolish. But there's a possibility we come back down to the bottom of this channel over the next, few days maybe or so, which would put us back down in the mid to low 170s. I don't think that'll happen, right? Again, I'm not expecting that to happen. I'd be surprised if that actually does happen. But again, it's not something I'm just going to assume for whatever reason that is just 100% not going to happen, right? I'm always taking into account that that is still a possibility, and I'm trading around that. Now, that's kind of the main overall potential bearishness, if you will, that I see, right? But again, if we break over 190, fantastic. But let's say we do break above 190 and we break out of this channel. What's next? Well, the most important level, in my opinion, most likely, is about, this 194 to 195-ish level, right? That's going to be important to break because it breaks this actual overall downtrend that we're in this tiny little situation here. We set a new, because we're constantly setting lower lows, lower highs. Then we officially set a fresh higher high, which is good. It's a potential break of trend, and we recapture this old support now turned into a resistance, which is going to be great to see. And I think after that, the move back up to the gap fill of the earnings gap at about 209, 2010 or 210 rather, whatever, is looking likely. It's looking pretty darn good. So that's kind of what I see on the 4-hour chart. Going to the daily chart very quickly though. Same idea, right? Yellow line. We finally broke out of this downtrend, came back, retested, so far successfully, not too bad, decent close on the candle. But the most important thing here is the fact that the RSI is still looking beautiful, still looking like it wants to continue, showing momentum, showing signs of life, which is great. And arguably more importantly, even, is the MACD. The MACD on the RSI for the daily chart is not yet, but very, very close to flipping bullish. You can see the green line is on the verge of crossing the red line, which is a good sign to see. We need a little bit more follow through, maybe, a break of that, well, 190 to 195-ish area that I just talked about could be what, finally causes it to flip bullish, or maybe even just really slightly green tomorrow could potentially even be enough of a catalyst. We'll see, of course, but that's definitely something to kind of, slowly eyeball and kind of, monitor, slowly but surely. Also, right, that's important to understand. So those are the main things I'm looking at right now, right? And ultimately, that's pretty much the most important thing, right? I don't want to make it too complicated. We are closing above the 5-day moving average over here, which, pretty much almost never happened. We had one closure here, but it wasn't super convincing. This is a much more convincing close above it. So that's good to see. That's potential, momentum shift as well back to the upside for the bullish side, which is, very nice to see. The weekly chart is looking pretty darn good. It's a nice, beautiful looking hammer candle. So even if we just go pretty much sideways from now until Friday's close, and let's say we close at like 190, or something like that by Friday, which is possible. There's a chance that we don't really do a whole lot for the rest of the week, and Thursday and Friday are kind of like nothing burgers, and we just go sideways, and essentially don't do a whole lot, and the market closes at about 190. Well, on the bright side, we set up an absolutely gorgeous looking hammer candle, which is going to be beautiful. One of my personal favorites to see, and it'll be a green, or I guess white hammer candle, which is beautiful. That's what I definitely would want to be seeing. So that's important to understand. That's potentially setting up as well. But that's kind of the main thing I'm looking at right now. Let's talk about what the actual, Disney's going to beat earnings. This is a call that came in right before the market closed. Let's talk about what, the options flow, right? Overall options flow was kind of all over the place. Just before the market closed, or about half an hour before the market closed, we did get a 1.1 million put over here, 217 put. So it's pretty much, pretty in the money, but it is a short dated put. It's quite a lot actually for this short dated. So that kind of makes my thesis of potentially a little bit of a move to the downside is expected. Now, again, because, it is short dated, it's actually literally for this week. So it's a weekly, so it's literally expiring in 2 days, but it is extremely in the money. But for 1.1 million, it makes sense. So to me, when I see this, it tells me that they're not expecting a crazy move to the downside. Whoever bought this, the potential whale that bought it, but they are expecting maybe a little bit more pain, which again could be what sets up that potential right shoulder of that inverted head and shoulders pattern right here, which again maybe takes us to about 183 to 180, somewhere around there. Still a very real possibility. Again, I'm not completely taking that out of the equation, but ultimately though, with that being put aside, the flow was definitely more bullish than bearish. For instance, we had a 1.5 million call over here, 150 call expiring in a year. Again, also extremely in the money in this time for the call section, of course, but nonetheless, still pretty good to see. But it is quite safe. Not really expecting a complete and sudden massive rally, but nonetheless still of course a quite bullish flow. But ultimately Tesla was more bullish and bearish in the options flow, which is good to see, and so far clearly being the case. But with all that being said and done, ladies and gentlemen, that's the main thing I'm looking at right now, right? That's the main thing I'm kind of eyeballing without overcomplicating it and whatnot, right? The 4-hour chart I believe is also starting to squeeze over here as well. Yeah, the 4-hour chart is looking to squeeze. We have red circle starting to set up, so the squeeze is starting to build, and it looks like it wants to flip bullish. So this looks like it's going to want to squeeze to the upside. Again, it might take a couple of days, right? It doesn't mean it has to happen tomorrow or even necessarily this week. It absolutely can potentially take until early next week, but it does seem like Tesla is setting up for a move to the upside. I'm definitely leaning a lot more bullish than bearish here, but very, very, very short term, like maybe even as pretty much short term as tomorrow/Friday, there is still potential that we drop down again, 184 to 180. Very real possibility. And I honestly would not be surprised if that happens. If we drop down to the low 170s again, still a possibility, but I would be a little bit more surprised of that actually happening and occurring. So all in all, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much what I am seeing right here or right now. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button as it does help a lot. And with all that being said and done, I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, peace.